Jack Walker's hands were rough from years of hard work, but today they trembled from exhaustion. Every muscle in his body ached, yet he couldn't afford to slow down. Ever since his wife passed away, life had been an uphill battle. As a single father to 6-year-old Lily, he had taken any job he could find: construction, repairs, hauling whatever paid enough to keep food on the table and the lights on. But no matter how hard he worked, it never felt like enough. Bills piled up. Lily needed new shoes. And with winter coming, he worried if he'd even have enough to keep their tiny rental warm. Then, one afternoon, while walking past the town's only diner, something caught his eye: a faded paper pinned to the old bulletin board. Handyman needed urgent, fair pay. His heart pounded. Without a second thought, he tore off one of the paper slips. A few hours later, Jack's truck rumbled down a quiet dirt road at the edge of town. The job led him to an old, leaning barn, its wooden frame creaking in the wind. Standing beside it was a woman, her hands on her hips, watching him approach. Jack parked his old truck and stepped out, taking in the sight before him. The barn leaned slightly to one side, its wooden beams weathered and cracked. It looked like a strong gust of wind could knock it over. He had expected a simple repair job, but this would take serious work. A woman stood nearby, arms crossed, watching him. She had a confident stance, like someone used to handling things on her own. As Jack approached, she studied him for a moment before speaking. "You, the handyman?" she asked, her voice steady. "Yeah," Jack said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Name's Jack." She stepped forward and offered a handshake. "I'm Claire. I own this place well, some of it anyway." Jack nodded. He wasn't here to ask questions. Work was work, and right now he needed every dollar he could get. Jack took a deep breath and got to work. The barn was in worse shape than he expected: rotting planks, broken beams, and a roof that looked like it was barely holding on. Fixing it wouldn't be easy, but he had no choice. The pay was fair, and every dollar mattered. Hours passed as he worked, sweat dripping down his face. Then, as the afternoon sun beat down, Claire walked over, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. She handed him one and leaned against a wooden post. For a while, they just sipped in silence. Then Claire finally asked, "So, what's your story, Jack?" He hesitated. Small-town folks liked their privacy, and he wasn't the type to share. But something about Claire, her quiet strength, the way she listened, made him open up. "Lost my wife 3 years ago," he admitted. "It's just me and Lily now." Claire nodded thoughtfully. Jack stared at the ground, his fingers tightening around the glass. He wasn't sure why he had shared that with Claire. Maybe it was the way she listened, or maybe he was just too tired to hold it in anymore. "She must be proud of you," Claire said after a moment. Jack let out a small breath, unsure. He did everything he could for Lily, but was it enough? She deserved more than a father who was always exhausted, always struggling to make ends meet. They worked side by side for the next few days, sharing bits of their lives between hammer strikes and quiet moments. Slowly, the barn started coming together. Then, just as they were near the final stages, dark clouds rolled in. The wind picked up, howling through the trees. Jack glanced at the sky, his gut tightening. A storm was coming, and it wasn't going to be gentle. The wind howled as the sky darkened. Rain slashed sideways, pounding against the half-repaired barn. Jack worked as fast as he could, his hands numb from the cold. He had to secure the last beam before everything they'd built was torn apart. Then it happened. His foot slipped on a loose plank. He lost his balance, arms flailing. The world tilted as he felt himself falling. Before he could hit the ground, strong hands grabbed his wrist. "Got you?" Claire shouted over the roaring storm. Jack's heart pounded as she pulled him back up. His breath came in sharp gasps. That was too close. When the storm finally passed, he sat on the barn floor, shaking. Claire chuckled. "Well, you just saved my barn, so I guess we're even." Jack exhaled, relieved. But something told him this moment meant more than just fixing an old barn. Jack rubbed his sore wrist, still feeling the rush of what had just happened. "That was close," he muttered. Claire smirked. Yeah, well, you just saved my barn, so I'd say we're even. Jack let out a deep breath, the tension finally easing. So, what happens now? You planning to sell the place? Claire was quiet for a moment, her gaze drifting over the land. Then, she turned to him. Jack, I never told you the whole story. He frowned. What do you mean? She gestured beyond the barn, toward the rolling fields stretching past the horizon. This isn't just a small farm. I own thousands of acres beyond that ridge. My family has been here for generations. But after my parents passed, I couldn't keep up with it all. I was ready to sell. Jack listened, unsure where this was going. But something in her voice told him this was important. Jack's brow furrowed. So why didn't you sell it? Claire sighed, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. Because of you. Jack blinked, confused. Me? She nodded. I saw the way you worked. The way you didn't complain, didn't cut corners. You reminded me of something of the kind of people this land was built on. Hard work, honesty, resilience. She paused, then met his gaze. That's why I want to offer you a job. A real one. Steady work. A place for you and Lily to call home. Jack felt his breath hitch. A job? A home? Stability for his daughter? His chest tightened. It sounded too good to be true. Claire, there's no catch, Jack, she said softly. Just say yes. Jack swallowed hard. He looked at Claire, then at the land. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel so far away. Jack's throat tightened. A job. A home. A fresh start for him and Lily. He wanted to believe it, but after years of struggle, it almost felt impossible. Claire? I don't know what to say. Claire smiled. Say yes. Jack let out a shaky breath. He looked around the barn they had rebuilt together, the land stretching endlessly under the golden sunset, the opportunity staring him right in the face. For the first time in years, he saw a future where he wasn't just barely getting by. A lump formed in his throat, but he pushed it down. He glanced at Claire, searching for a catch, but there was none. Just a woman who believed in him. He nodded. Okay, yes. A few weeks later, Lily ran through the open fields, laughter ringing through the air. Jack stood beside Claire, watching her, feeling something he hadn't in a long time: hope.